Blessed be to your day. May it be the greatest point of learning. Divine Rise, blessed be to your day. May it be the greatest aspect of learning. Be in here training. Here's a thought. Promiscuous thoughts. Our thoughts drive our emotions. So looking only for the feel good is just as negative as avoiding feeling bad. Your comfort is drains our imagination. It drains our imagination. That thought process to only try to feel good, I want to feel good about myself, or I'm only looking to feel good, is just as negative as you thinking into the aspects of you remaining in a positive sense. I just dropped a TikTok video. It's in my story now. Into the aspect of your thoughts power your emotions. A lot of times we think that our emotions power our thoughts, but it's your thoughts that power your emotions. Remember, it's that first thought that you have when you wake up. First breath of life you brought into your body. Based on that thought drives you into your emotional catalyst. The emotions are already in play. If I sat here every single day and I thought, if I was thinking in a negative sense, oh, I got to go to here, or I got to do this, or I got to go to this, I got to do this. Of course, that thought process now becomes my emotional catalyst or manifests into my emotions. That means even when I'm feeling good, what am I feeling good about? What am I feeling good about? What am I feeling bad about? I'm thinking about good or bad. That good and bad is an aspect of comfort. It all boils down to that aspect of that comfort zone. You'll stay in a situation that's bad. Simply out of knowing how to react, how to move through it, how to react. So does that make that bad or good? Or does it make it positive versus negative? I'm going to get into it in this week's God Hour podcast, where a lot of times, since we're not, remember the unseen, and we talked about that on Friday, that unseen aspect in our lives, the unseen is what creates our space. So if I have use an example, break it down into an example. If I know that I had a narcissistic mother, or my mother had narcissistic traits, my pops had these certain traits. If my pops had certain traits that were negative, or my mom had certain traits and she was negative, or people around me when I was being raised had certain traits that were negative, and these traits go unlearned, unhealed. Every time I go into a space, my promiscuous thought to remain in comfort, I'm naturally going to attract those unseen thoughts into my space. Those unseen thoughts into my space. Naturally, it's going to gravitate towards me until I address my thoughts. This is one of the thought processes. This is one of the things I always think about when it comes into, it doesn't matter what I do inside of a day. Don't matter what I do inside of a day if at the end of the day I'm drained. And a lot of us think that being drained at the end of the day, and you being tired at the end of the day, you not having any energy at the end of the day, we think that that's just normal. We think that that's normal. We think it's normal to be drained to be drained past recharge mode, just so we can go recharge. Not listening to your body. Your body lets you know when you're tired and when you in that space before you even get to it, based on your thoughts. But if I'm thinking, or I'm in the aspect of reacting, when we're in that thought process of reacting, our thoughts become promiscuous based upon that comfort, that feel good. Whether it's negative or positive, it's based on a sense of control. It's based on a sense of control. It's based on a fear of rejection. It's based on a fear of it's based on a fear of losing my identity. So we'll drain ourselves all the way down to maintain this aspect on ourselves. You can't imagine yourself being in a different position because you don't have control of your thoughts. You can't imagine. I remember for myself, not imagining myself being in a certain position solely because the environment matched my comfort. No matter how negative my environment was, in my environment, I had a level of comfort. I knew I could wake up and react a certain way. I knew I could maintain my behavior. I know I could complain. I know I could stay within this train of thoughts. I could stay within these trains of thoughts. And regardless of whatever I did, anything that streamed into my shit that was positive based on the external concept, that means I got money from my job due to a bonus, or I got in a relationship, or I had a friendship, or somebody called and said they didn't want to hang out. All of that was great. It kept me in comfort. Staying within this comfort, we're always going into this aspect of this comfort. Staying in your comfort zone kills your imagination. Staying in that comfort zone keeps you locked in the time loop. It keeps your emotions, it keeps you manifesting through the emotional content based on survival, based in a certain space. So as long as that's there, you'll never have to do anything. One of the easy examples that I've used before is like, I don't want reparations. Because when I think about reparations, when I think about something like reparations, my automatic thought process is, how much money will it take to shut me the fuck up? Take that into the same thought process based on that ego based, or as we got into on Friday during the lecture, during class, that thought process in my mind of that sniping post. How high is the sniping post to keep me inside of my comfort zone? That's where your inner child shoots from that sniping post to keep you in your comfort, your ego aspect. So how much to shut you up? Even if you did get it, are you willing to do what it takes to go get it? Because you have no plan and you ain't got no plan in motion. This is how we start thinking about these aspects of where we focus our thoughts is where our energy goes to. That means that's where our emotions are going to go to. Our emotions are always going to bring up into that space. And if I don't have my thoughts in order, I definitely don't have my emotional intelligence in order. So therefore, I'm always looking. I was always looking to be mad. I was always looking to be upset. I was always looking for a state of avoidance. I was always looking to stay in a state of insecurity. Didn't nobody make me insecure. Didn't no one keep me in a state of being insecure. I did that. Didn't no one keep me in a state of being jealous. I did that. Didn't no one keep me in a state of avoidance. I did that. Honesty with yourself. No one kept me in a state of struggle. I did that. The external just mimicked and reflected what I already did. No one kept me broke. No one kept me struggling. No one kept me struggling. No one kept me broke. It was that promiscuous thought to make it like I was doing something that had me stay in that position. So if I really thought someone kept me struggling, or someone kept me struggling, or someone kept me broke, or someone kept me in a certain position, it kept me out of that sense of accountability that we're always talking about. It kept me out of that space of accountability. If I was hungry, nobody kept me hungry. It was me that kept myself hungry. I did not know how to feed. I did not know how to eat to live. I didn't know how to eat to live. I only know how to eat based on feeding those emotions. Nobody is keeping you in a position of anything lower than yourself. When we think to this level with ourselves, you're not struggling. You have to admit that you are disorganized based on your thoughts are disorganized. You got to understand that your thoughts are disorganized. And you're in that space with yourself of being, you're not taking that full accountability or taking them steps to that accountability for that aspects of that energy that you just keep moving around in that state of promiscuous. You want to, a lot of times for us, I remember sitting in a space with myself, long time, where I would be like in this state of comfort, and we base it on what we've already been through. We base it on our past. So we'll say to ourselves, I remember saying to myself, I've been through all of this shit. I deserve some good shit to happen. So I'm just sitting there waiting for the good shit to happen based on my negative. But now that I understand my energy and my thoughts control my emotions, and if every day that I wake up in the mindset of, I got to do this, or, I got to do this, or this, and this, and putting myself in that negative space, then of course my energy is only going to focus on to the negatives. It wasn't my job that had me upset. It wasn't the people at my jobs that had me upset, that had me feeling some type of way. It wasn't my job. It wasn't the people. It wasn't the places. It wasn't the things. It was me. It was me. I didn't learn to get to a certain level of acceptance, so I couldn't imagine myself being happy. I couldn't build the mental construct of making myself happy or seeing myself in a happy position based on the internal. So our standards remain in the external aspect of that's living by somebody else's standard, living in that comfort zone. Because as long as I'm living by that standard, I can remain comfortable in this. I can remain comfortable in my anger. I can remain comfortable in my emotions. Here's the natural aspect of you. You will never, and this is that common sense point with ourselves. You stay in that thought process. You keep listening to the bad aspects. You keep going back through the memories and not pulling up the lessons. You keep I want to learn the lesson. Okay. Everything in your space has to be broken down. You can't build on this aspect of this. A lot of times for ourselves, we keep looking, like for me as an example, I remember looking at where I came from and I was always trying to get back to it. I couldn't allow you can't get back on the tree that you fell from. You got to go through this process of putrefaction. You got to go through this breakdown process so that you can assess and you can grow. So you can assess and grow. Because if I'm only looking at where I came from and the aspects of what I did and what I've been through, if I'm only looking at those aspects and I'm only using, remember, the unseen to create my space, if my space that I came from, in truth with myself, if the space that I came from was not of happiness but of survival, of not love but of survival, but of jealousy, of insecurity, of doubt, of those negative aspects, then that means everything that I attract into my space will have that same frequency, that same part of thought. It makes you start thinking about those things. It makes you start thinking about those connections and those transitions. I remember One part of my story is like 27 family members before I turned 18. Every person that transitioned, when I go back and look at them now, when I know, I'm like, damn, they served their purpose. They all got to a certain point. They were stuck within a certain point. So they perfected that aspect of themselves. They perfected that space. After the grieving, and I was like, damn, I started understanding that aspect. So now when I see the transition, when I see the moving forward, I understand that they perfected that space. They did exactly what they needed to do. The only thing that I needed to learn was, you know what? What did they teach? What did they show me? Whether it was in the negative or in the positive. Whether it was in the negative or the positive. And this changes your aspect and outlook on everything. Once you see it for what it is, you understand why it did what it did. Why it moved the way that it had to move. You learn that lesson. You tap into that aspect of that motion. You change that aspect within you. I remember a lot of the things. I had separation anxiety and abandonment issues like motherfucking crazy. So I became very, very fucking cold. So when niggas transitioned, when niggas left, friends, family started separating, I had to understand the process of them separating because as we broke down on Friday, I had to go into this space of nothing. This point of no return, that space of nothing, where I didn't believe in anything, I didn't think anything, I didn't know anything. And you got to get to that point. You got to get to that point. You need that point. You need that point of where you don't believe in shit when you're in this space with yourself, because it's natural. That's the conflict. The conflict with your holding on. So you now tap into that higher aspect. That promiscuous thought destroys your imagination. Think about it like this. When you were in the worst cases of your life, when you were in the worst spaces of your life, you imagined how to get out of it. You imagined out of the craziest way to get out of it. Even if it was negative at the point in time, you did it based on surviving to get yourself to the next level. You did it. Own it. So think about if you take that same formula, and take the thought process that something has to fall away for me to tap in and move up to the next level. Think about what you'll see inside of your space. You'll see it exactly for what it needs to be. You'll come into the aspects of those lessons that you need to see. It changes those aspects. Because until then, and what we're going to get into this week on the God Hour podcast, you're just performing assault and battery. When it comes to these archetypes as the protagonist and the antagonist, a lot of times when we're looking at certain spaces, we're looking at the antagonist and we're not understanding that as long as there's an antagonist, we're the protagonist. We're the supporter. Remember, there's no such thing as the good and bad aspect. They're both two sides. They're two sides of the same coin. And in the center is the most evilest of thought. That's your death. So when we think about, I'll use an example. When you think about the narcissistic, you had a narcissistic mother or a narcissistic father or a narcissistic parental figure in your life, or that narcissistic aspect in your life. As long as you're not dealing with those emotions, as long as you're not doing that healing or tapping into that healing work, guess what you're doing? You're the supporter of the narcissist. As long as you're not dealing with those internal wounds, the physical aspect outside of you, you become, and I talked about this before, you become the fetish. As long as you're remaining unhealed, you become a fetish. You're the fetish. Your trauma becomes the lubrication of you being inside of that space. So this week on the God Hour podcast, we're getting into assault and batteries. We're going to get into the aspect of battery saver, How much, like, let's think about a battery saver on your phone. Exactly aspect. Battery saver on your phone. You got 15 minutes worth of energy left. You got 15 minutes worth of charge left on your phone. And you know, at 15%, that's what I'm going to say, 15%. At that 15%, what happens? When you hit that 15%, it says battery saver mode. That's what you keep doing with your energy to stay within comfort. What are you shutting off in order to remain in comfort? Sometimes you gotta let it die. The best way to get your full charge, sometimes you gotta let it die. That goes into the aspects of those amps and ohms. Those amps, your energy, your frequency, where you at with your space as you move, and where are you putting it at? Where do you keep speaking your shit into that space? And then we got a bonus on there on the God Hour podcast. This week, God Hour podcast episode drops Tuesday at 6 a.m. I'm gonna talk about it all week. Next week, Lucy got to go on. Lucy is taking a break. Got to recharge, get myself together, come up with some brand new things. We'll have class Friday, next 2 Fridays. But next Tuesday, there will not be a God Hour podcast. So for everybody that's booked a consultation, coming into the aspects of their therapy sessions, you will be getting your information this week. But we will be starting when I get back on. I'm going away for a little bit, taking this time to the self. It's always time to recharge. We can't become the best until we learn how to take that rest to ourselves. That's something I had to learn for myself. But I desire you to be the best. Everything from the consultations to the readings, seeing where you at in your natal chart analysis, all that good stuff. You hit me up in the inbox. Hit that, schedule it up in the inbox. I desire you to be the fucking best. Your thoughts are the batteries to your emotions. It's time to assess your thoughts. It's time to assess the thoughts. It's time to... Thank you. It's time to assess those thoughts. It's time to assess the thoughts. Sit with yourself. Your body keep telling you to sit the hell down, but you don't want to sit down because you try to remain in that battery saver mode. It's time to sit down. Watch everything fall into place when you sit down. I can guarantee it. Because I've done that shit many times before. I got to a point, and I've talked about it in lectures. I got to a point where I was like, oh my God, I have nowhere to go. That was everything in the universe telling me to sit the fuck down. It's time for you to sit the fuck down. I love you. We love us. Ashe.